Guys, let's thank today's sponsor, NordVPN. You go to nordvpn.com, Dan Allen. You can get the 2-year plan with 4 months additional for free. Let me tell you all about it, guys. NordVPN makes your online data unreadable to others. That's the top line stuff. Keeps you 100% protected and shielded from criminal surveillance, unwanted guests. 100% protected. But what I use it for predominantly is not only helping with latency in games using the VPN, PC games and that sort of thing, but you can also get Netflix in the US here in Australia, or you can get other streaming services from other regions that you may not have access to in your region. You see what I'm saying? So that's how I was able to access HBO Max Justice League, was using NordVPN. And I've used all the VPN services, guys, and NordVPN by far the most reliable, secure, and the privacy policy and the security. If you look in the back end and do some research, you'll see these guys are top-notch security, top-notch. That's why I trust them. You got the reliability there, and you got the 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can test it out for yourselves as well, guys. Again, nordvpn.com/Dan Allen. 2-year plan, get the bonus 4 months. Thanks to this exclusive deal. They support us, and we're going to support them. Guys, get on it. Now enjoy the video. Hey guys, today I just wanted to talk about the Resident Evil Village DLC and everything I know behind the scenes, cut content, what the possibilities are. I'll give you everything in this video, and I'll have timestamps if you want to go to a certain section of the video. I don't know how long this one will be, unscripted, but we'll see how we go. I just wanted to touch on this DLC. Obviously, it was announced a couple of weeks ago at the Capcom press conference sort of thing, and they said it's in development. And I get this question a lot, Dan. Is it really just started development, or have they been working on it? The truthful answer is I don't know, but if I was a betting man, I would say they're being completely honest and transparent. If you look at the track record of the last couple of games that they've done, they haven't really had DLC. You know, Resident Evil 3 last year didn't have DLC. Maybe that was because of the reception of the game. I believe it sold 4 or 5 million copies, which was lower compared to Resident Evil 7, which has done around 9 to 10 million. So, and Resident Evil 2 remake also up there in the sales as well. So I'm not sure, but you know, you hear people all the time talking about why don't we get the Resident Evil 3 DLC. So I hear that a lot as well. But I think they're being 100% transparent, and you know, the pandemic doesn't help things. You've got to take that into account as well, guys. Now, they got this Reverse game that was supposed to come out. It's supposed to come out this year. There's no hype around it. This multiplayer game. We go back to Resistance and Umbrella Corps. Both were very lackluster. Let's be completely honest. Didn't get much going, and I don't know if you can even find a game on those two games right now if you look, especially in Australia. You wouldn't be able to find a game, which is sad. Will Reverse be the same? Will it be dead on arrival? Let's hope not. But with that game coming out, maybe they tie it in with this DLC to try and create a bit more hype around Reverse. But that being said, I don't see this DLC coming out until next year. I would say April, May next year, you'll see this DLC, and it'll be quite a hefty chunk, lengthy, is what I would say. Now, we'll go into the possibilities of the DLC and things like that. But again, guys, don't expect this DLC to come out this year. Just don't expect it to come out. Now, what also plays a part is the Resident Evil Outrage game. I made a video on the other Resident Evil game that's supposed to come out the end of this year or early next year, where that ties in, because that needs some breathing room from Village DLC as well, you'd think. So the timing there's got to be right. And obviously Resident Evil 4 remake game, probably not going to see that till late next year or the year after, unfortunately. That's just how it's going. Pandemic and all the other Resi games in development. And this DLC, like they said, by popular demand, they've had that many requests, and this game being the fastest selling Resi game in history has really helped them. And it's on track to be the biggest selling Resi game of all time. Technically, Resident Evil 4 is the biggest selling, about 11 million units if you count everything. Ultimate Editions, the originals. You know, it's had years to accumulate that many though, so let's put that into perspective. It's had the PS2 version counting in that and the Wii version. But this game already done about 5 million. We don't know how many, but around 5 million already after a month or so. So just imagine in a year, you'd think that it'd hit near 10, depending on deals and what goes on and gold editions and, you know, whatever. So going to that. So let's think logically here, guys. Why did this game sell so well compared to other in the franchise? Was there a certain villain that was marketed and shown that created a lot of buzz? There's a great video that shows the characters of Resident Evil and the clicks and the Google searches of these villains. And if you look at Lady Dimitrescu, it's just mind-blowing how popular she is compared to any other character in franchise history. If you look at the Google search, she just skyrocketed in popularity. She hit pop culture, and that really accounted for a lot of the sales of this game. So, DLC. Spoilers. We've killed her off. How do we work this in? Well, I'm willing to bet $1 million if I had it that she'll be in the DLC. It's a no-brainer. And to create more sales for the DLC, you put her on the cover. And so how does that work? Well, I think all of us want Lord's backstory. We want to see, before Ethan arrives, maybe the Lord's mutating, or we play as some other villager. We go in and see how it all developed. That would be the ideal way for it to go, in my opinion. But having all 4 Lords would really create a lengthy game. Again, nearly a full game if you try and putting story in, and there's a lot to dissect there. So unfortunately, I think some of these other villains are going to get left behind, and it's just going to be a Dimitrescu DLC. And, you know, for the people that want Heisenberg, the people that want Donna, you're probably going to be left behind, unfortunately, just because of the popularity of Lady D. So, you know, there's a couple of ways they go, but I would say that's how they get around it. They do a prequel of sorts, how she mutated into Lady D herself. Go into some of those notes that we go around, with, her relationship with the daughters and how that came about, all that sort of stuff. That's what people want. So, yeah, that's the logical way they'll go in terms of business. That's the way I see it. That doesn't mean that's the only, DLC they'll do. Resident Evil 7 had 2 DLCs. You had Not a Hero and End of Zoe. So possibly 2 for this game. Who knows? There's plenty of other options they can go with, which I will talk about in a minute. But in terms of cut content, guys, I think I've talked about this before. Ada Wong cut content where she was actually going to be a part of the game. And originally, the early plans had her as a masked character coming in to save Ethan from the village, that early stage of the game. They decided to cut that. Will she appear? There's a chance, but probably not. I'm looking at this logically. Again, Dimitrescu, number 1. And this cut content, a lot of this cut content I'll talk about now, probably not going to make it. We don't want the scraps of the game. We want new stuff. We want new story, new developments to sink our teeth into. We don't want scrapped ideas like this. So Ada Wong probably out of the picture. Now, some cut content that may make it in terms of enemy variety. There's this Wolfman they talk about in an early draft. A young man of the village drunk from a chalice and turned. That was eventually cut out of the game as well. So maybe these type of enemies may make it in, but probably the other, main sort of characters, probably not. Another really cool cut design is this large Lycan who commands 2-chained Vakulak. Is that how you say it? Anyway, those things are hard enough on their own, let alone 2-chained with a big beast of a Lycan. I love this idea. He's almost a boss battle. That could be cool. It's a piece of cut content I'd like to see. Will we see it? Who knows? There's also this early development concept art where the initial ideas had the story switching between the village in modern day and the past. Maybe that can make its way in. Again, it's why I'm being very hesitant is the scope of this DLC. We don't know the scope. What's the budget? How long are they going to work on it? We look at End of Zoe and Not a Hero, not hugely expansive and long DLCs. So I'm going off those two of what to expect. Per DLC, a couple of hours each. Usually DLCs sit around the 2 to 3 hour mark. Maybe you can push it to 4, but really 2 to 3 hours worth. So not a lot, but still exciting. When you think about it, the section with Lady D in the main game is probably only 2 to 3 hours, maybe less. So that's something to think about as well. Now, Moreau, Originally, the swamp was going to be more expansive, like a European fishing village. There was underwater sections, I believe, different creatures, bigger area. I'm not sure I'm not sure on the underwater. Don't quote me on that, but there was a bigger section, more expansive, and possibility that they do something with Moreau. So that's a bit of cut content. More cut content I've heard of is Chris. He was having a section in the Demetres Castle, from what I heard, and he had some puzzles and some areas to explore through there, but I think the scope got a hold of them and they decided to remove it. That's why you see a lot of laptops around, and the pacing on Chris's story throughout the game is a bit off, because I think he was supposed to be more playable than just the end. It's a little bit funny how it all pans out. So that's another bit of cut content. Maybe we play as Chris. I'll go into that later. The Eleanor section we never saw it in the game. That's cut content. Apparently the pacing was off. It didn't quite work in the playtest, so probably not going to see that in the DLC. And if we do, we know they're bullshitting when they say we're just starting development. If we see any of this stuff I'm mentioning in terms of deleted content, we know they're bullshitting. Also, Donna, the backstory there. There was some cut family backstory there where I believe one of her family members jumps off the waterfall there. Really dark past. It's apparently cut, but really we don't know the backstory of the family, so maybe it's canon somewhere. Who knows? Now, let's get into the actual DLC. What are the options here? We obviously talked about Lady D. That's probably the most probable. But what else? What can be covered here? The big one that everyone talks about with me is accepting the deal with Heisenberg. And I think that's a perfect second DLC. So we got the first one with Lady D, and the second one where we accept his deal and see how that plays out, or some sort of Heisenberg content, because he's just such a cool character. Love Neil, love Heisenberg, the voice, the look, the feel. A lot of people hated the factory section. I didn't mind it personally. Different enemy types. We're not going to go into the copyright shit and all that. Let's save that for another video. But Heisenberg, plenty of options with him. Accept his deal. Bit quirky, bit interesting. I don't see it going that way. But I know he was a popular character, so maybe he gets a chance to shine. Another obvious one is Chris and what happens after the story, a continuation of that with Mia and the BSSA and that whole thing. That could play out. Personally, I'd wait to see that for the next game. I'm not really thriving to see that next part of that story. I'd rather go back to the villains like a lot of you guys would. And again, spoilers, Rose Winters, what happens with her? Again, save that for the next game. Let's stick to what made this game work well, the villains. So there's some other common options you can go for. I know the perfect outcome for me, personally, is backstory on all four lords, how they were mutated, and how that came to be. That would be my perfect pitch. And 4 hours worth, an hour each for each villain. That's what I would like personally. You let me know if you agree with that. But that's what I want. I want to see how they mutated, and just maybe a couple of days before Ethan arrives, or whenever they mutated, each backstory, how it all happened, or something along those lines. That's the perfect DLC for me. This one made the game so fun to play. It was this crazy characters, crazy villains, enemies. It was quirky. It was mythical. It was off the wall, and that's what I loved about the game. So let me know what you guys want to see from DLC. I know I've gone off at a bit of a tangent in this video, just going on random thoughts, but there's a lot to unpack. And again, if we look at the actors behind it, I'm trying to get information out of them. They're not going to tell me a damn thing. And even if they are working on it, they're good actors. So, I can pry all I want, but it's not going to happen. So, I'm thinking, what I'm doing is I'm keeping a track on how busy they are in terms of social media. And I know for a fact that Maggie Robertson was doing more mocap, whether it was for this game or not, we don't know. But she definitely was back in the booth. Back in the volume. That is confirmed from her. She did say that, so that could be a sign. I know Neil was back in the volume as well recently for a project. Again, these could be other games, other things. We don't know, but just something to take into account that they're the only two that I know of that have done mocap recently, and it lines up with my theory of those two being the most popular. I don't know. I might be reading into it, but let me know, guys. I'm really interested in this DLC, and it's it should be a lot of fun. So, guys, as always, make sure you subscribe for all Resident Evil Village and other Resident Evil games. It's been my pleasure to serve you. Take care.